You're right.
Acid reflux.
Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee with...
Meteorologist Joe Rayo on a Monday night.
Right. Same shirt, different ties.
Okay.
And we look good. We're sharp tonight. Welcome, everybody, to my YouTube channel, which is... actually, if you use the direct link, it's youtube.com/c/Joe Chaffee Weather. But yours isn't that easy yet, but it will be. But Joe's got a YouTube channel, and I want to at least put the link up so that the folks at home can have your YouTube channel. Isn't that exciting?
That's exciting. That's really exciting. Any of you would like to see
Go ahead.
If anybody wants to see the interview I had with His Eminence Timothy Cardinal Dolan last January, I was invited on his Sirius XM radio show, which was also on the Catholic TV channel, so you can see that. He describes me in his introduction as Little Joey Rayo.
Yes.
And the first thing out of his mouth was, what about that recipe for spaghetti and meatballs? Thinking that there was an affiliation with the famous restaurant.
Oh, the restaurant, yeah. Were you going to show up with a jar of sauce?
Yeah. I should have.
David Schwartz would like to know, there was all sorts of rain in Tuxedo Park, Orange County on Saturday. Did it stay dry for your event in Putnam County, he asks.
No, not necessarily. We did have some rain at times, but especially in the afternoon as was expected. But we still had a very, very good crowd, Joe. We had, I believe, on Saturday over 750 people came in. And yesterday, beautiful day, lots of sunshine, low humidity, another 500 people came. So it was a success in spite of the weather on Saturday. And lots of people had lots of fun, ate a lot of food, and heard a lot of German music. And, well, what else can I say?
No, sounds like you had a good time was had by most.
Well, if you can consider sitting behind a help desk and telling people to do this.
Did you have glasses with like a chain on it? So...
No, but You know what really was surprising to me was the fact that so many people came up. You know, nobody asks for autographs anymore. They always ask for selfies. Would you mind if you can get a shot?
Oh yeah.
It's it always amazes me. Like, why would they want a picture of me?
You're 1 decade back, technology wise,
right?
At least
Exactly.
And actually, but there's that's not uncommon. I think I've always said all of us. As you get older, there's a certain point where your body, your brain refuses to learn any new technology,
right.
And you just stop. And I often say how with my father, it was right after the invention of the wheel. He just that was it. He didn't want to know anything else. So I get it. But little by little, he's got a YouTube channel now.
One of the biggest fights my wife and I had ever had in 35 years of marriage, one of the biggest fights was when I asked her if I could get a jitterbug. And she looked at me, and flames came out of her eyes.
Oh, really? Because
I was willing to break down. She said, "Why don't you get a cell phone, a mobile phone, something like that?" And she's expecting me to say, "Get an Apple iPhone or."
You said you wanted a jitterbug,
and I said, "Well, the jitterbug looks like something I could really hand." Oh God!
Really?
You didn't want to be there, Joe.
Was there, were you cast out into the darkness through the gnashing of teeth?
I almost was. Hey, let me tell you something. You talk about being cast out into the darkness. I don't know about you. I've been in broadcasting now for 41 years, and now I'm using this analogy.
Well, I'm at 40, so go on.
I'm using this analogy that when you're much younger, you're like on a ship, and you're about 100 miles away from New York City, right? Mm-hmm. You can't see New York City from 100 miles out. You can't see the skyscraper. You just see the horizon and wide open waters.
Right.
As you get older, as you approach New York City, you begin to see the World Trade Tower, the Empire State Building. It begins to protrude up from the horizon.
Right.
Right? As you continue to go on your journey and as you continue to add on years, the skyline begins to get more and more prominent, bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I'm beginning to realize right now that come 2 months from tomorrow, my ship may very well be coming down into the Hudson River, pulling into a dock and docking, and that's pretty much going to be it.
I don't know. It's not.
Well, nobody.
It's
knows.
not quite that.
Nobody knows, Joe.
All right. Why don't we do a little?
Then I'll go on the YouTube, and I'll have my own. I have my own YouTube channel.
I think Joe's referring to, by the way, the fact that in 2 months from the 15th, we cease to be here at FiOS One
Right,
News,
right.
where we both work.
Right.
But I got my YouTube channel. Now you got your YouTube channel. So
And so what you're suggesting is that each day I go on the YouTube channel and just, hi everybody.
you could do that if you want. You could do it once a week. You could do it. It's all up to you. It's your channel.
Yeah,
You
I
can
know.
do what you want.
I know.
It's just
It'll
like
be
it's
like
my.
I'll be like $1 Million Movie in Channel 9 in the 1960s. I'll show Giant Behemoth
Okay.
like 16 times during the course of the
Or
week. You
cut
miss
it
it?
open with Chiller and 6 fingers.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
chill. All right, let's do some weather here. It's 10 after. We've been going at it for a while. Joe, we haven't seen this in a while, in quite a while. I just hoping to notice it from the Storm Prediction Center. Not only no severe thunder, organized severe weather tonight,
Right.
but from Maine down to North Florida, not a thunderstorm to be found. That's pretty.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's
And
pretty
for much of the country today, it really is kind of evident of the fact that September, it's a little juxtaposed between the fact that for us and for probably a good chunk of the Northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states, September is one of the driest months of the year.
Right.
September and October,
Right.
I think, are 1-2. And at the same time, you have, against that, it's the peak of hurricane season,
Right.
which for September and at least for the first part of October. And right now, in terms of what we're seeing weather-wise, both things are in play.
Right.
Because we have an active season, we have an active tropical. The tropics are active. We have Hurricane Humberto, which we're going to look at, and we also have a strong tropical wave that's out in the tropical Atlantic that probably will develop. And at the same time, I was looking at stuff today, and I thought, you know what? It not only may not rain here in our neck of the woods through this weekend, but you could conceivably make an argument that we may have to wait till later next week before we even get the first real shot of any kind of rain.
Well, I tip of the cap to the people at the Climate Prediction Center who, about a week or so ago, more than a week ago, had above normal temperatures, but also well below normal precipitation. And I looked at that and said, what they're implying here seems to be like a protracted dry spell. And indeed, that's exactly what we're entering right now. And I absolutely agree with you. We may not see a single drop of rain between now and sometime, at the very earliest, next Monday night or Tuesday of next week.
Well, SPC, WPC,
and
the
there
Weather
you go.
Prediction
Look,
Center.
right. Look, we're in the white.
We're in exactly, and even if we're in the lightest green, that's a tenth of an inch or less. So basically, from Florida up through Maine, and you can probably go about 90 miles inland. You're talking about a tenth of an inch of rain or less. That is bone dry. The only place where it's active, Texas, because of the upper low that's out there right now, so that's front end loaded. You've got rain up through the middle Mississippi Valley and up and through parts of the northern plains and back across the northern Rockies. You're looking at precip there up into the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Northern California.
Doesn't that look like a finger pointing?
It does, with a nail.
With a nail.
And a horrible nail color. Yes, now, of course, that rainfall represents Humberto, which is on its way to a little, maybe a side swipe of Bermuda, and they have tropical storm watches up for Bermuda. The funny thing about Bermuda is, I was having this conversation with Bill Goodman over the weekend, how Bermuda, that little dot, that's where it is in the Atlantic,
Right.
does in some years it's like a target, and they all seem to gravitate there. And yet, if you go back not too many years ago when they got hit with a Category 3 hurricane, I believe it was Gonzalo, and they had damage. But 2 weeks later, you looked at video from Bermuda, you wouldn't even have known that it was a hurricane. It was all cleaned. They all went up. They cleaned it up.
Right.
Here's a satellite tonight, and we've got a rather it's kind of really interesting, Joe, how bone dry it is across the eastern United States. You see that system in the Gulf, and of course you see the hurricane, top winds 90 miles an hour, well off the southeast coast and kind of inching eastward. And also, if you look to the north, you could see the cold front that's moved on through and dropping southward. So there's really nothing here that can bring this up the east coast.
Right.
It has to go out to the east. You're in line with me on
Yes.
this, of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it hits that cold front literally is suppressing the storm is only going to go so far north, and then all of a sudden it's going to make that sharp right turn. Unfortunately, in the vicinity of Bermuda, but yeah, there's no way that initially. I mean, it looks like a very threatening, a very, you know, formidable type of situation with a storm like that just off the southeast coastline of the United States. And if things were a little bit different, if the upper air winds were a little bit different, it could very easily come right up along the eastern seaboard, but thankfully it is not going to do that.
Yeah, the upper air winds have been and continue to be all wrong for a storm to come up the east coast. And here's a tight view of the hurricane, and that eye, Joe, is just really well defined now. This is going to be this is going to be another major. I think it's going to get to Category 3 before this is all said and done.
Yeah, no question about it. Especially since you can see literally right before your eyes that the eye is developing very, very nicely.
Yeah,
getting
that symmetrical look that storms that eventually become majors get.
Look at the outflow clouds are reaching the Carolina coastline.
Yeah, they've been in high clouds, in and out high clouds all through the Outer Banks and down to coastal South Carolina. But in terms of actual weather going on, as far as rain is concerned, no issues there. There's nothing rain-wise anywhere close. So that's a good thing.
Great.
And here's a wider view, so we can take a look at also if you look out in the tropical Atlantic, of course, on the far right is the African coast. You can see the clouds that are over the Leeward Islands with an upper trough and a tropical wave that's not going to be doing anything. But in between that, we do actually have a low that has developed, and there's some thunderstorms, but they still appear a little bit disorganized. But conditions are going to be favorable for that to develop over the next couple of days. So we may wind up having another named storm as we get toward the end of the week.
The models are suggesting that after we get past Humberto, there will be something else trailing, several days behind it.
Yes. All right, I'm going to bring up, before we do anything, let's just check if there's a recon there, and there is. So 967 millibars. So that's a drop of, I believe, 5 millibars since the advisory. And looking at the winds, okay, so you got the purple. Purple is 64 to 83 knots. He's about to make another pass and coming in from the north. I see 64 to 83 knots. I don't see the 83 to 96 in that first pass. But he might see it on the pass coming around. But Clearly this thing is still deepening. It's in some kind of deepening phase here. So we'll probably get down maybe into the 950s before it's all said and done. And, how close it comes to Bermuda, that's a big question. We'll come back to that a little bit. But you mentioned, Joe, you said how the upper air winds are, pretty much all wrong.
Look at that. I mean, they mentioned last week that the pattern is such that the air is coming from Great Slave Lake,
right,
sweeping or swooping on down on a northwest trajectory across our area. So there's just no way in the world that you're going to get.
You can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got upper air winds like this, even if you wanted to make an argument, it's already moving east. So we're looking at the 18,000 foot level. So as this system gets more vertical, and you look higher up, I bet you've got, I'm going to bring up the water vapor imagery, but you'll probably be able to see westerly winds down as far south as where Humberto is. So in fact, let's do that. I'm going to bring up, let's bring the water vapor. Let's go to the wide one. Hang on. I went to a dinner at my mother's house, which is the reason why I usually have these maps set up ahead of time, but I didn't get a chance to.
And a delightful dinner it was.
Oh yeah, and my brother had brought back an apple pie from northern New Hampshire, from Lake Winnipesaukee.
Oh wow!
Oh, it was like you died and went to heaven. Okay, so let's get the upper air water vapor imagery. So that's this guy, and we'll put this. I'm going to go back like 60 frames, so you can actually you'll be able to see. In fact, if you look closely, folks, and you can see, I wanted to make sure you guys were on the screen. Let me clean that up. But if you look closely, you can actually see there's a trough right in here. You see how the clouds, everybody see those clouds off of just north of Virginia? I'm sorry, of North Carolina and east of Virginia. They're moving west to east pretty much. And there's an upper air trough here, and that is carrying this east or east-northeast right toward Bermuda. And in fact, let me erase this. Right in here, there's like a short wave of some kind that's pushing this along. So this really can't go up the East Coast. It just can't.
It's a kicker.
Yeah, it's getting kicked out, and the more vertical the storm becomes, the further out it's going to go. Now, the one thing I will say going forward that I think we need to pay a little bit of attention to, and it's not really from this from this particular storm. So let's set it up. So this is our short wave that is running from Newfoundland down to off the Virginia coast. This is pulling, and of course you've got that other stuff that's going on. We saw at the high levels anyway. But this is basically pulling this out to the east-northeast. And you've got the upper trough way up that's also pushing that's pushing it along. So the offshore Atlantic trough is there and would pick it up if it were far enough south. But it appears that this first trough is not going to pick it up. It tries, but it kind of leaves it behind here. See, going into Thursday, the trough now is up here and gone, and you're still left with my brain keeps wanting to go to Felix. He wants me to go to Gabriel. Humberto is sitting out here after it's made its pass near Bermuda, just kind of waiting for a second shortwave to come down. And indeed, it does come down. This one up here from Canada then picks it up and starts to carry it away, or attempts to carry it away from the northeast. But even here on the GFS, the European carries it away. The GFS tries to leave it there in the Atlantic even further out, and then eventually it lifts it up and it goes goodbye.
Right.
I bring this up because of the fact that at the moment you've got this upper high that late this week is going to be sitting in the Atlantic. So if we're watching a wave that is out in the tropical Atlantic here, if there's an upper high building to the north, that might keep it moving west or west-northwest. If Humberto gets out of the way fast enough, there won't be a weakness left behind for any system down here to turn into, and that might drive it further west.
Right.
If this were to linger and it keeps the ridge weaker, then you could make an argument that anything that forms down here is going to turn and get pulled up eventually to the north and then to the northeast by the leftover trough from Humberto. So it makes that what this hurricane does is going to impact the longer term outlook of any subsequent weather system.
Which is why you really can't say with any surety beyond, let's say, 4 or 5 days, you know, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's all going to be dependent upon Humberto, and that's something that really is beyond our scope, I think, right now.
Right. Now, let's look at the overall long-term pattern on this latest run. Models have been trying to hint at the idea of a trough dropping into the eastern part of the United States. It still seems to want to do that in the longer haul as we get toward the end of the month. One of the things that I've noticed, Joe, is that we were talking last week about typhoons in the West Pacific that the models were trying to develop, and none of them have happened. So you keep getting the runs of the GFS. They come and go with trying to drive a deep trough into the east and not drive a deep trough into the east. This seems one of those model runs where it tries to do it and doesn't quite get there, but you still have a general, this still wants to try to do something like this here in the longer haul, and the ridge wants to go back out in the west again late in the period. So I would just say that, if you're going to have a trough, it's going to want to go into the eastern United States. If we do have tropical systems around, you might we probably have to pay a little attention to them as they approach.
Well, don't forget that Sandy came in the last week of October, and even though, once we get past, the end of September, people say, all right, now we could relax. Not so. I mean, October could be a very active month for tropical cyclones in this part of the country.
And I guess over the last 10 or 15 years, Octobers have produced quite a few interesting storms along the way.
Right.
Let's see if we can give the snow lovers anything to enjoy, and then we can go to the chat board for a little while. Anyway, no weather issues here. Obviously, we're in a snooze fest all week. Wednesday into Thursday, that looks to be the coolest part of this the stretch we're getting into.
Right.
Humidity, by the way, Joe, the dew points. Whoops, wrong map. Sorry. The dew points. Where are you dew points? I mean, your dew points get down into the 40s and 50s, all the way down almost to the Florida Panhandle by Thursday and Friday. So this is a really decent push of dry air, and the hurricane's actually helping to drag that dry air because of the way the upper air is structured.
Right.
But going forward, really, the first frontal approach is Monday, and that kind of weakens, and then you got another front along about Thursday, not exactly knocking my socks off here, and there's some snow way up in Labrador. Nice cool high. So it looks like we're getting, fronts on a regular basis, and you have the long-range models popping up tropical storms still on a regular basis.
There's that system, the second system that.
No, that actually is the third one, because that's at 16 days from now.
Oh.
Here's the second one.
Okay.
So on this particular run of the GFS, and the European did the same thing. The system that's out there now, it doesn't get picked up by Humberto's leftover trough. It seems to slide just underneath it, but it doesn't really do much with it when it gets it just east of the Bahamas. It kind of loses it. Then it's got another one there,
Right.
and that's for late in the period. Look, it's going to stay. It's going to stay active into the beginning of October. There's going to be probably a few more names that we're going to see getting those out of the way and pushing up into the double digits as far as named storms are concerned. So let's come to the board. Hey, we got a nice crowd tonight. And Lisa Nieves, one of my regular supporters, hits the super chat button tonight. Thank you so much. Coffee and tea from you and me. Okay, so, I did put up a post, Joe, and this was in response to what you were looking at, without being too specific as to whose it is, but the bottom line is, tis the season.
Oh.
Yes, tis the season for snow forecasts to come out, and I'll just read you really quick what I wrote, and then you can certainly comment if you like. But this is what I said. Hang on. I put it up on my Facebook page, my Facebook weather page today, and of course, when you want it to load. By the way, on my Facebook page,
That's a lovely view.
that was at Cedar Beach, Long Island Sound last night. I took a whole bunch of pictures just after sunset. It was just amazing, the view. Love this time of year. Okay, so here's what I said. Is it still trying to load? It was the next to last post. It shouldn't take this long. Okay. Now that it is September, you can expect the usual suspects to come out with their winter forecasts. I don't do long-range forecasting, but I do pose this question. Is there ever a forecast other than below average temperatures, above average precipitation, and above average snowfall? Is there anything other than that forecast? Because that's all you ever see.
Right.
Get ready for the onslaught. I want no part of it. For one thing, bless the hearts of those who do these forecasts. They try so hard, exclamation point. Other than a few out there who are good at the mid and long range. And I mentioned Dave Tolerus of Weather Risk because I think he does a reasonably good job in trying to analyze the long range. And he doesn't always get it right, but sometimes he does hit home runs. A few others. In my view, it's a general waste of time. They tend to make nice fantasy reads, but not much more. But not much more than that during a time of year where high temperatures are still in the 70s.
But what I showed you earlier, the forecast, this map had everything, every conceivable possibility. There was nothing on that map. Dry, cold, wet, heavy snow, hail. It was ridiculous.
And snow from Florida, all 48 states.
Right, exactly.
Including Miami.
Well, he did have snow. He had the Florida Peninsula in snow. It's when is that going to happen? Or when did that happen? Last time I remember that happened was in 1977 when Miami recorded a few snowflakes.
Right. I'm just trying to edit my thing to put in some parentheses, so it's a little bit easier to read.
English.
Yes, because I wrote it, so sometimes when I write things when I'm upset, I don't double check, and I should do that. Yeah, look, please, guys, and guys and gals on my channel, you know how I feel about this stuff. So, you're going to ask me my opinion. I'm not going to tell you anything because I have no idea. I don't know, the general motivation with these forecasts is to get attention. And you're not going to get attention by saying the winter is going to be a non-event. So, especially, a lot of the focus with the winters are for the I-95 corridor from, Washington to Philadelphia to Boston, to New York City to Boston, because once you go far enough north and west of there, most of the places, those are the people who live there, have kind of recognized the fact that it's cold in the winter and it snows sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes it snows a lot, and sometimes it doesn't snow quite as much. They don't get wrapped up in the drama. Paul Roman, thank you. They don't get wrapped up in the nonsense that we see and the apocalyptic visions of snow flurries.
So, in other words, what you're saying is it's just a tad too early to try to go and look at Siberia's snow cover at this particular moment in time.
Well, look, it's okay to look at those things, all right, and I'm going to look at them when the time comes, because the way I look at it is, okay, if this is supposed to be, if this is supposed to translate to an active winter, I want to see if it's going to work, and the fact is that for many locations last winter and to a certain extent the winter before, it might have been an indicator for some spots, but not for others. Bottom line is, I don't know that there's any real magic bullet as far as trying to find that one thing that's going to say, okay, we've got this, therefore it has to mean that.
Right.
That doesn't happen in weather, at least that I've ever seen.
Too many variables.
Yes, exactly. So,
are we supposed to be doing something at 8:30?
Yeah, you and I gotta go.
Taping or whatever.
Yeah, we gotta go. William Uber wants to know, Joe and Joe up in those resorts, the archipelago islands in Canada are in the teens now, and it's snow. Oh, you're going way up there, Bill. You're going way up to like the top of Canada. Yeah, it's starting. It has to start someplace. It's definitely going to start there first.
Right.
And Alfred. What was his last name? Oh my God, my brain.
This is very embarrassing.
It is, because he's one of my favorite guys from Wainwright, Alaska. He's up on the North Slope. He hasn't been on for the last week or two. Maybe he's on vacation. Where do people who live and work in the North Slope of Alaska go on vacation?
I don't know.
To like the Aleutians, or?
Where the people in hell tell other people to go.
Well, that's a good point. Gerard Stapleton's in St. Martin. He says, am I saying the northern leewards, there's a possibility that we might get something from, you used the word strike, 97L. Okay, I didn't say anything yet. Okay, I didn't say anything yet about if and where that was going anywhere. So we haven't even addressed that. So let's see if anything develops between now and the next 48 hours, and then we'll address whether it winds up heading toward the leewards or if it winds up going to the north of the leewards. And I think you and I do have to go at this point. Okay, so thanks for being here, everybody.
We'll be back.
We'll be back tomorrow. Or, I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe you'll be back later in the week. You're always invited.
I have nowhere to go.
I know.
And
well, you know what? I like to save you for days where we got stuff to talk about.
Okay.
And if we're going to be in a snooze fest tomorrow, weather-wise, we'll wait maybe for that second system to develop, and we can figure out where it's going to be 10 days from now. We'll be the only ones to get it right. All right. So weather in 5 tomorrow morning. So we'll update you on all the goings on with the tropics and with Humberto and what's happening with Bermuda, or what could happen with Bermuda. Oh, I should mention, by the way, for my the folks up in the Canadian Maritimes, in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, right now it would appear this would pass pretty far south and east. But I would just keep a kind of a little side eye in case it decides not to get hung up when it gets to Bermuda and just kind of decides to shoot up northeast from there.
Well, the only
might make a closer pass. I would just put that out there.
If you're out near Cape Race, for example, in Newfoundland, that's that's the part that juts out.
Yeah.
You know, that might.
Yeah, you might want to pay a little extra, just to pay a little extra attention over the next couple of days.
Right.
Let's see what evolves with all of this, because the European got it pretty close to Newfoundland. It passed far enough south of Nova Scotia, but it did get it pretty close to the east shores of Newfoundland. So just pay a little extra attention. Weather in 5 tomorrow morning. Website posts throughout the day. And, of course, you got a live stream coming up tomorrow night, probably. Tomorrow we'll do it at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.